Welcome back to the Wrestling Mindset Podcast. I'm Gene Zanetti, your coast-to-coast mindset coach, bringing you the best available wrestling-specific mindset information anywhere in the world. Wrestling Mindset. Thank you guys so very much for joining us with another great podcast. We're constantly pumping out great information for you, and I wanted to let everyone know that we've taken things to the next level. We've released a do-it-yourself program, the full Wrestling Mindset program, all the worksheets, all the exercises in a simple do-it-yourself format. We've also created different bundles for those of you looking for specifically mental toughness or aggressiveness or peak performance. We made it very simple. It's so easy to use. Go to the show notes, click at the bottom of the show notes. There's a link there. Make sure you sign up and buy it today. Great information. Make sure you capitalize, and we hope you enjoy the show. Mindset makes the difference.
Overcoming the fear of fatigue. You'd be surprised how many athletes at the highest level get nervous and get worried because they're afraid they're going to get tired while they're competing. It's a common thing. As we've worked with many athletes around the country, all through the levels, from youth right through the Olympic team, we found some of the toughest athletes are worried about getting tired in competition. Why? Because it is a tiring thing. You're going to be expending a lot of energy when you're competing in sports. So we got to be ready for it. We got to be ready mentally. We got to be ready emotionally. We got to be ready physically. The simplest thing we could do is have extra workouts that we're doing to combat that fear of fatigue. So now, of course, the benefit of an extra workout is it gets you in better physical shape. You're in better physical condition if you're doing more workouts. But I want to really emphasize the mental and emotional component. While you're doing these extra workouts that you're going to pick for yourself in a minute, what I want you to do is while you're doing those extra workouts, you need to think about those moments before you compete where you start to question, am I ready to go? What if I get tired? You're going to remind yourself of these extra workouts when you're in those moments right before a competition. So these extra workouts are done not just physically, but probably even more importantly, to mentally give you the confidence to know you are prepared, you've trained for this moment. So when you start doubting yourself right before a competition, you can go right back to that extra moment. Great example I could think of, John Smith, wrestling two-time Olympic champ. One of the things he did as an extra workout, he would wake up at 2 a.m., he would go to the college arena, and he would do this. He would run the stairs. Why? Because he knew his biggest opponent was in Russia, and that was the time where his opponent was going to be up and training. So in his mind, his extra workout was, he's like, I know that during the day, my opponent's sleeping, and when my opponent's training, I'm also training. So that was his extra workout. Now, maybe you don't go crazy with something like that, but maybe it's, I'm going to run 5 sprints after practice. After practice is completely done, even if you just ran sprints as a team, you're going to run 5 more sprints. Maybe it's, after practice, I'm going to do 10 pull-ups and 10 chin-ups. And that's your extra workout, or a certain amount of push-ups. Whatever it is, ideally it's something sport-specific. I always lean towards the sport-specific because it's going to help you in competition. But even if it's not sport-specific, even if it's just something for conditioning, it's going to remind you that you are ready to go. When you start questioning yourself right before competition, you could think back to those extra workouts. So take a moment and write down something you could do, even if it's just something very small on a regular basis. That could be an extra workout to give you the mental edge. That's the key. It's going to give you the mental edge. Take a moment right now. Part 2. Now that you know what your mental edge is going to be with your extra workout, we need to have a focal point in the moment of fatigue, in the moment of being really tired. You think about women going through this before they go through birth. They're told to pick some kind of image, to have a focal point in that moment of pain, in that moment of fatigue, right? What's our focal point? What are we telling ourselves? What are we thinking about in a moment of pain or a moment of fatigue? The problem is with most athletes, they wait till they get in the moment and then they try to come up with something off the top of their head. But if you study some of the best athletes, some of the athletes that are the best at pushing through pain, at pushing through fatigue, they have a plan. They're telling themselves the same thing on a regular basis. Some are aware of it, some aren't aware of it. I want to call this to your attention right now. I want you to start becoming aware of it right now. And if you don't have something planned, I want you to plan one right now. What's going to be your focal point in the moment of pain, the moment of fatigue? I think back to myself. This was one of the things I took in stride, and I would think back to Rocky IV, and I would think his manager telling him, no pain, as he's doing those sit-ups and this whole workout, no pain. And I used to tell myself that, and I realized even when I was working out in the gym by myself, I would say no pain. So I had a focal point. I had something I was telling myself on a regular basis. You have to pick what works for you. You can't just do what works for someone else. You might be able to use someone else's focal point, that's fine, but pick something that works for you. And remember, the left side of our brain responds more to words, right? It's more logical, it's more analytical. The right side of our brain responds more to images, to pictures, to music. So your focal point could be a song, it could be a picture, it could be an image, it could be a motivational or inspirational quote. I remember back in college, back in high school, my focal point wasn't the Rocky quote, but it was a Muhammad Ali quote where he'd say, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Ah, rumble, young man, rumble. Ah." Whatever it is, you got to know what you're telling yourself in that moment. So pick a focal point right now, and then the key is this: practice it. When you're in practice, when you get yourself tired, when you feel yourself in pain, say that focal point. Think of that focal point. Right? So you might have two of them. You might have a word and phrase, you might have a song, or you might have a picture. You might pick one or two of them. Don't go crazy. You don't want to flood your mind with a lot of things, but pick one or two things that you have as a focal point and start using it. If you build up those reps in practice, then it's going to be second nature once you get into competition. So practice the way you want to play and play the way you want to practice, and you'll be able to push through that fear of fatigue. We've seen it many times. Mindset makes the difference.